this is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I have a layout that I made for Mixed Media Mayhem and for Christy's Beautiful Life, 30 Days of Sketches, Series 10, Day 7. Today's sketch was created by Karen Leahy. For this layout for Mixed Media Mayhem, we have to use stamping, we have to use crayons, and we have to use splatters. I'm using a photo that was taken 7 years ago. This is a photo of my two daughters and my younger daughter's best friend when we went to a place called Sugar Factory. It was a very trendy place that my daughter really wanted to go to. It was in New York City. We were almost thinking we wouldn't be able to go because there was quite a bit of snow, but it ended up being fine by the time we had to leave. And so I decided that since this picture was taken outside the restaurant, I would use a winter snow theme for this layout. I'm going to be creating a mixed media background for the layout, but before I did the background, I wanted to make the photo cluster and see where I wanted to put the mixed media. So I am attaching all of the pieces of paper together, but not attaching them down to the background. I'm using a old Bo Bunny collection. It's called Altitude, and I absolutely love this collection. I've been using it a lot lately because I've been scrapbooking a lot of winter and snow themed photos, and I just kind of fell in love with this collection. I had it in my stash, and I really didn't even realize that I had it or that it was as nice as it is. And unfortunately, I don't have a lot of it, but I have the 6x6 pad or whatever is left of it, and I have a couple of pieces of 12x12 paper, and I've been able to make quite a few layouts with it. So I'm hoping to be able to continue that. And I think I will be able to make quite a few layouts with what I have left of it because I seem to use this collection with mixed media backgrounds, and I find that whenever I make a mixed media background, I use less pattern paper than I normally do. I'm following the sketch fairly closely. I have my large cluster on the left. I think mine's a little bit more like elongated than the one in the sketch, but you could see that it's pretty close to what's in the sketch. And then I have the circle in the upper right-hand corner. I am following the sketch in putting some banners coming out from both the circle in the right-hand corner and the bottom of the large cluster. I'm inking the edges of all the pattern papers in this layout with the Distress Oxide called Uncharted Mariner. I think that color is a good match for this collection. I wanted to add a couple of little details to the cluster, so I added that striped piece of paper on the center right above the photo, and then I'm adding a little scrap of paper in a little strip right underneath the photo. I just thought that by layering up some of the papers, it would make the cluster look a little bit more interesting. I've cut several strips of paper. These were all made from scraps that I had with this collection, and I cut a fishtail in them, and now I'm inking them and attaching them down to the bottom of the layout. I tend to like collections that have blue in them. I love this very dark blue. I also love royal blue, but in this particular collection, the blue is fantastic. All the blues are fantastic. And then that addition of the reddish purple color, I think, is what makes this particular collection, this winter theme collection, one of my favorites. I really like that addition of the reddish purple. And come to think of it, I have a lot of Bo Bunny collections that rank among my favorites, especially with summer collections. I have some summer collections that I absolutely love by Bo Bunny too. But now I'm going to start my mixed media background. And what I like to do is angle my pencil in and make a pencil line approximately where the clusters are going to go. But I try to be very careful not to draw the pencil lines where you could see them, because even though pencil is very easily erased before you do the mixed media background, once you add mixed media, it is very hard to get off. So I've made that mistake in the past. So that's something that I always try to make sure the pencil lines are behind the cluster. I'm sorry that I mixed it together off camera. I'm using a mixture of gel medium, the gloss finish gel medium, and something called Opal glitter medium. I got that from Hobby Lobby. I wanted the background to be sparkly, and the Opal glitter medium is very sparkly, but I didn't think it was thick enough. Since I'm using a stencil, I wanted whatever medium I use to have enough body to it to be used with the stencil, and I think that this was successful. It's very glittery and it seemed to mix really well with the gel medium. Sometimes it's really hard to see certain things about layouts on a video or in a picture, but in person there's a lot of sparkle in the background. And maybe the camera picks it up, I'm not sure, but if you would like your background to be sparkly, this is one way you could do it. I'm using a stencil that I got in one of the My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kits that I got, I think, from last year. It's a Vicki Boutin stencil. It was perfect for this layout because it has snowflakes in it, and then it also has some circles that look like snow falling. Now, one of the things we had to use on this layout was crayons, and I very rarely use my distress crayons. Sometimes I feel like I get stuck in the habit of using the same materials over and over again. So I like the idea of having crayons on the list of things we should include in our layout. Sometimes I just need that little push out of my comfort zone. I'm using the packaging technique. I'm taking the distress crayons and I'm scribbling on some plastic, adding some water, and then smushing the plastic down to those same areas where I added the gel medium and the glitter medium. I started off with a color called Weathered Wood. That's that grayish blue color that I put all around the background. Now I'm adding a little bit of this turquoise color called Peacock Feathers. I'm just adding little touches of that color. I don't want to cover up all of the weathered wood, but I like to add this color because this was another one of the colors that was in the collection, and I think that it brightens up the background. At this point, I was worrying that by putting the distress crayons on top of the gel and the glitter mediums that I already have in the background, it might make the glittery look get covered up, but you could still see the glitter in the final layout. So even though it might have gotten covered up a little bit, it's still quite glittery. And if I had wanted a super glittery background, I could have just gone in with the stencil again, and I could have added another layer of the glitter, but I added a lot of other sparkles, and I think the layout is glittery enough. For me, I feel that every mixed media background is an experiment. Whether I'm experimenting with the materials that I use, or I'm experimenting with different mediums, or how different colors look next to each other, I never feel that it's a formula. I never know how the background's going to turn out, and for me, that's the fun of making mixed media backgrounds. I feel like each one is unique and each experience of making a background is unique. The color that I'm adding now is Chipped Sapphire. I'm pretty sure I always add splatters to my mixed media backgrounds, but it's one of the elements, so I wanted to make sure that I added it on this layout. So I made some splatters in Chipped Sapphire, and now I'm adding one of the Tim Holtz Halloween colors. It's called Fortune Teller, and the crayon worked fine. I noticed the texture of it was a little different. It was a little chunkier when I scribbled it on the glass table than the other ones were. I don't know if that makes any difference, but I just happened to notice that. Now I'm going back in and adding another layer of color. I just wanted to make sure that all three of these very different size clusters had enough layers of color to look vibrant. I added some small splatters of the Chipped Sapphire. I was thinking though that I should add some of this color to the clusters. I think that because it's darker than the colors that are down there, it adds a little bit more interest and a little contrast to the areas of color. But I just add a little, I just want a few accents. And then I want to add a few accents of the Fortune Teller, this reddish purple color. Again, I had added some splatters of that color, but I wanted to add just a little bit to each of the clusters, and I really like this addition too. I always want to be careful that I'm not creating such a colorful background that it will overshadow the clusters and the photos that I put on top of it, so I'm not making any of these clusters really dark. I splattered a little bit of water on top. This is something I love to do. It will lift up the color, and there'll be some cool little water droplet effects. It didn't really work that well on this particular layout, maybe because I'm using distress crayons and that's a different medium than what I usually use, but that's okay. I added some white splatters and that created the variation that I was looking for. On pretty much every mixed media background, I always sprinkle some water and then lift it up to make those droplets, and then I usually always add some white splatters over the top of the areas where I put the color. And when I'm doing it on a layout that is winter themed, I always think that it represents snow, but I do it anyway. I just really love both of those techniques. Now, the third thing that we had to include on this week's layout was stamping. I found this set of stamps. I believe I bought this at a garage sale. This is a really cool set. I don't think I appreciated it until I looked at it when I made this layout. It has a lot of images in various sizes. So it has 2 different types of snowflakes in 3 different sizes. I think at least 3 different sizes each. It also has different types of leaves in different sizes, different butterflies in different sizes. It has some hearts in different sizes, just some very common images that you might need for different seasons of the year. I'm using a couple of different distress oxides. I'm using wilted violet, I'm using dusty concord, and I believe the blue is faded jeans. It was a little hard not to get carried away with the stamping because I just love the way all the different colors looked with all the different size and types of snowflakes. So I mainly concentrated them on the outside of the big area of color, and then I also put some on those smaller clusters as well. I didn't always press all the way down on the stamp. I don't mind if the image is incomplete, and I don't mind if one side of a stamped image looks darker than the other side. I think that those variations are what makes stamping look interesting. I added another snowflake up on top. It just looked like there was an empty spot there. And then because my background is gessoed, it was very easy to clean up a little mess in the lower right-hand corner. I added a few more snowflakes, and now I'm adding some more Distress Oxide to the edge of the photo cluster. I just want to make sure that that photo cluster contrasts enough with the background. So in order to add a little bit of dimension, I'm using some fun foam and I'm popping up the large cluster. You probably know what fun foam is, but if you're not familiar with it, it is foam that you can get with adhesive on one side that you can find in craft stores in the kids section, and it's absolutely ideal for adding just a small amount of dimension to elements on your page. It's not very thick, so it doesn't give you a lot of bulk. It just adds a little bit of, like I said, dimension and interest to the things on your page. So I like to put ATG adhesive on the back of the foam. Sometimes it's tricky to do, but I like to do that because sometimes I like to change my mind about where I put things, and I find that it's repositionable. I also pop up that circle that's in the upper right hand corner, and I use fun foam and ATG adhesive for that as well. And in the sketch, it's slightly overlapping the side of the layout, so I cut a little bit of it off. And now I'm using a wet paper towel, and because I use Distress Oxide and because there's gesso on the background, I'm lifting up a little bit of the color. I thought that some of the snowflakes look a little bit too bright. My title is going to be Brrrr. I've had these letters in my stash. I cannot even tell you from way back when. They, I think, are maybe Heidi Swap chipboard letters. I'm not sure about that though, but they weren't the right color. I wanted them to be a dark blue, so I'm using some Waverly acrylic paints. Sometimes when you mix complementary colors together, they make mud, but if you use them in unequal amounts, you can change the look of the color you're using with the complementary color. You can make it darker or dull it down a little bit. So that's what I did with the orange paint. It wasn't the perfect color orange, but it did help to change the color enough so that it was the color that I wanted. I used these recollection stickers on a recent layout, and I found they went really well with this collection. They have those same colors of blue and of violet, so I added some of those polar bears from this sticker pack to the layout in a couple of different places. Now that the letters are dry, I positioned them on the right-hand side of the layout where I made that third cluster. I'm also using the snowflakes that are from that same sticker pack, just as a few little accents around those polar bears. I really liked the polar bear on top of the title, but I didn't like the way it was too close to being right under the polar bear that's on the upper right hand corner. Whenever I'm adding a number of embellishments that are very similar, I don't want there to be another embellishment either right above, right below, or to either side of any of the embellishments. So if you draw a straight line through the bear on the upper left hand corner, you'll see that there's no other bear in the same line going up or down, and there's no other bear if you draw a line going across. I hope that that makes sense. I think that's a really good thing to keep in mind when you're distributing your embellishments around the page. I added some very tiny rhinestones to the center of all of those white snowflakes that I added near the bears. Next, I wanted to add some dots all around the outside of all of those clusters. I'm using a Stampin' Up stamp, and the dots are irregularly spaced and they're slightly different sizes. So I'm using some of the same Distress Oxide colors that I've already used on the layout, and I'm just stamping in a few places wherever I feel that those dots would make the layout look a little bit better. I found I had a pack of soft-spoken stickers, and there was a little white glitter burr on that, so I decided to add that underneath the other burr. That area just looked a little bare, and I thought that that was just a nice little element to add there, just to add something else to the title. I wanted to add a little bit more shine to the layout, so I'm using some jewels. I have these very tiny, sparkly white jewels. They're both small, but they're two different sizes. I added the slightly larger jewel to some of the larger stamped snowflakes, and then I added some more of those very tiny jewels, and that was the last thing I added to the layout, and here are some close-ups. Thank you so much for watching this video, everybody. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Please take a look in the description box. You will find information on how to watch the videos for all of the collaborators for Mixed Media Mayhem and also for Christy's Beautiful Life, 30 Days of Sketches, Series 10. There are so many talented scrapbookers that are creating layouts and videos, and I know that you'll enjoy watching all those videos. I hope you have a fantastic day. I'll be back again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.